All right.
Happy Friday, Derek. Thank you so much for taking time out of your busy schedule to sit down with me, virtually, I might add, to talk about you in Full Moon Digital. I know our audience will be excited to hear from the man himself, so I'm turning it over to you.
All right. Thank you, Brian. During this time, I'm not sure how much of a man I am, but I think having run this agency for almost 3 years now, remotely, I think it's I count it as a stroke of luck or a blessing in disguise that our team is has been 100% distributed and remote since day one. And as much difficulty and as much of a challenge as it was to start a remote team, I think this has come to a point where I think myself and I speak on behalf of our team are thankful that we're still able to function at near pretty much near full capacity, and continue serving our clients businesses, and helping them through this period.
That was amazing. And thank you so much for giving us that kind of insight and just really a great intro. And thank you so much. And now let's dive into that Q&A that I kind of mentioned before. But tell us about you. Tell us what makes Derek Derek. What makes you tick?
Yeah, that's a good question. I find myself asking myself that question every day, right? And I think the reality is, what makes me tick today is completely different than what made me tick yesterday, last month, last year, and so on and so forth. What would make me tick tomorrow morning, I'll probably figure out sometime later tonight, right? And so it's a very dynamic nature of things. And I get it. People talk about, what wakes you up in the morning, what gets you up and gets you pumped. I mean, but if we're being honest with ourselves, it changes every day, right? So, I mean, if you're looking for prospecting, you send out a proposal today, well, that's going to make you tick tomorrow morning. Looking forward to that, the answer. If you were in a bind with a campaign or a project, well, that's going to hopefully make you tick all day, right? Even all night. So, but I think at the core of it, what makes me motivated, what keeps me motivated every single day as I run this agency, and working with the team, it's really kind of seeing how the team reacts to situations and how dynamic the team is in response to the good, the bad, the ugly. All right, I think that's important to not only focus on the good, even though we all want to be positive. We have to realize that what makes people tick as a team, even myself, is the ability to look out for those bad and ugly times. No one talks about the good times. When it's good, it's hunky dory, right? It's like everyone's high fiving and cheering. But I think what really makes me tick is how do we overcome the bad and the ugly stuff, right? And I can go more into this later on the conversation. But we lost a client yesterday, right? So how do we as a team deal with that? I think that is a conversation that is almost taboo, even at such a critical like this, where no agency is coming out and saying, hey, we lost 2 clients yesterday, or we lost a client yesterday, or we are going to lose a client tomorrow. What are we going to do? Right? I think that's a very serious conversation. That's a very real conversation. Ugly as it may be, I think it needs some attention.
Those great answer. I loved it. And now what was your driving force behind starting Full Moon? And I just want to hear like from you is being somebody that was in the industry and working inside organizations, you walking away from that and starting your own. What was that drive? What was the driving force for that?
Um, See, I could give you a fluff answer, which I'm sure every agency founder has already given out there. To me, it's the money, right? I mean, the driving force was the money. And because, at first I feel bad about giving that answer. In the beginning, when someone asked me, why do I want to start an agency? The canned industry answer for every entrepreneur is because I found a purpose, because I found a dream, because I'm chasing my dream, because I want to help people. Great, right? Because I want the freedom. Perfect. I actually wrote an article about that as well. You actually lose your freedom in a very different way. But my main motivation was, I got really tired of helping other companies build teams and watching them make a lot of money without getting rewarded accordingly. But situations like this, I think a lot of people can empathize with this. Is as much as you have helped the company grow, you could be the first one to be out the door during a tough time like this. So my main drive to start my own agency was, one, the money, and I have no shame in that. But two is to also be able to survive in times like this, where you don't become dependent on a third party or someone else's business health for your living, right, for your sustenance. Of course, as a agency founder and owner, I am now responsible for my team to make sure that they are being taken care of as well, and not minimizing any kind of possible damage as possible, right? So the responsibility has shifted from, oh crap, I relied on someone, now people rely on me. So and that's why I say the freedom is kind of artificially perceived in the industry. When you start your own agency, and you might have all the motivation in the world for whatever motivation it is, you actually have shifted that responsibility onto your shoulders.
Wow, that was awesome. And I really appreciate you being so open and honest about that, because many entrepreneurs will tell you, oh, yeah, things are great. This is lovely. I get to help people and I get to do all these cool things. You being really honest about it, it's very enlightening. And I hope that other owners and founders will be just as brutally honest as you. And I know you have spoken a lot about building the fully distributed or remote team. And I know you've written a couple articles about that. Can you tell me why you went that route when building out Full Moon? When you went around building out Full Moon Digital?
Yeah. So I am not one who likes to be confined within the building. And I think part of why I made it as a distributed company and agency is, I mean, who doesn't like working in their pajamas, right? So I think there's a lot to be said for that in working within your own comfort zone, within your own productive, zone, so to speak, right? Because everyone functions differently, and remote working is not for everybody. Being a 100% distributed remote company, myself, it's because that's what I feel I can be most productive at. I feel like if I'm able to work from home, and if I have that autonomy to do, whatever I want, whenever I want, then I can help our clients better. I can deliver more results. I have more kind of, freedom in the sense of the confinement, right? In the beginning, I was thinking, if I work from home every day, it would get old, and there would be some disconnect, and there would be some, I guess, there's a lot of articles right out there that saying remote working causes depression. For me, it hasn't, right? So I think it's a very subjective, independent, kind of view on remote working. And I've read probably no fewer than 5 or 7 articles out there, talking about why remote working can be bad for people in this environment, that they would get depressed, they would lose human contact, and they would lose productivity. It's a very one-sided biased view on remote work, right? And this is obviously coming from writers who can't function in a remote environment. So that's actually an article that I wrote that counted an article that I think was published by EdAge or EdWeek, which I can share with the readers about. They talked about the possible dangers of remote work, right? But it was very one-sided as well. It's about kind of the 10 signs or the 7 signs of why remote working won't work. So I'm more than happy to share that. It's on a blog. More than happy to post it.
Love it, love it. I know during these times, I know everyone's having to adjust to a new normal, working remote and working in distributed teams, right? What would you tell your fellow business owners or your fellow executives about transitioning from an office team to a distributed team or to a remote team?
Uh, yeah, that's a tough one. um, yeah, I think it doesn't happen overnight, right? Just because the country's on lockdown or semi-lockdown or optional lockdown, whatever you call it, right? Um, Remote working does not happen overnight, and the bigger your company is, it's not going to be either more challenging or not. It's whether your employees are have been trained or have been conditioned to adapt in such work situations. And I've seen, like I said, even on my Facebook feed, people are complaining, oh, I get to work from home, but my kids are a distraction, or I can't get anything done at home. Well, I think the most important thing is it really goes down to the team, and I think the leaders of that team to really kind of educate and also be there for their employees. I think mindset is going to be a very, very key component to remote working for people who are not used to it, right? When I hear people tell me that remote working is actually destroying their lives and they can't go anywhere, it's driving them crazy. I think it's a whole human nature of I got to blame something or someone or some situation because I'm unable to focus, right? So whether you work remotely or not, employees, even myself, we all have an obligation to both the companies, our teams, and our clients to deliver, right? So it's a very tough question for companies. For our size of agency, we're small. So and we started remote day one. So when we bring on new people, like yourself or like Shannon or everyone else, it's a lot smoother for us to bring you on board. Especially the interviews happen remotely, right, over a phone call. The the training happened over a phone call, remotely. So everything was remote. So when you get integrated into a remote structure, it seems normal, right? But for someone who has been in the office day in, day out for the last, 6 months or 9 months, suddenly, they're left to their own device, right? They have supposedly this freedom that they may not know what to do with. And of course, it compounds on the matter because they're on lockdown. They can't leave their home, right? So it's almost a hostage situation where, it's like you're free, but within the confines of the four walls, right? And so it is a challenging time for a lot of companies. I get it. A lot of members, even leaders, managers who are not used to managing teams remotely, they will break down, right? And it really is an important time to, for each individual to kind of, it's almost come to Jesus moment with yourself and say, look, I'm stuck in this situation. Remote working is just a means to actually get my work done. You just have to create your own schedule and kind of your own process around how to get your work done. What's funny, and actually I think it's kind of, I'm happy to see a lot of posts out there where people are posting about their work at home schedule, right? It's like 9 to 9:30, feed the dogs, or 10 to 10:30, exercise, So they're really kind of importing their work schedule when they are in the office into their home. So I thought that's interesting. I never really thought about that because, as a remote company, like, oh, I want to go work, I walk the dog, I'll go.
No, those are great insights, Derek. And I know many people are trying to figure out, again, the work-life balance with being at home all the time. Yep. I know personally, I've struggled with that balance. But what would you tell either the leadership of an organization or the people working about how to manage that work-life balance with this whole going 100% remote?
Yeah, so I think the first thing I would say is if you, as a leader or a manager before this situation happened, if you are a micromanager, this will not work for you, right? This would destroy you because you have lost total control of the physical presence of your team. So if that's how you functioned as a leader before the pandemic or before the lockdown, you're going to have a hard time, right? Because, to work remotely, you have to create trust, right? You have to have a relationship with your team members. You have to be able to give them autonomy to do what they're good at, right? When you are in the office And if you did not exercise that kind of leadership back then, a handful of them will break down for sure, right? I'm not saying this out of in spite, but this is the reality of human nature. This is the reality of leading a team and being a manager. It will be stressful, but I think the one thing that is important is, I actually had a conversation with a really close friend of mine from LinkedIn. They run mastermind groups once a month physically, right? And we had a conversation about, okay, well, what happens to and what happens to that if we actually do it virtually on Zoom, right? Well, we came to the conclusion that whether it's Zoom or whether it's a physical, location meeting once a month, the reality is whether it's a building, a fancy conference room, or Zoom, like what we're doing now, those are just tools to a means of your objective, right? The key focus here is staying with your focus on what your meeting's objective is or what your team's objective is. Zoom, physical meeting, when you have physical meeting, you have free snacks and sodas and all that stuff, right? But those are just really tools. I see an office building as a tool, right, to enable the team to work and to meet the objective. I see Zoom as a tool to enable you and I to communicate and get things done. So I think people are putting too much emphasis on it's a remote work and everything's breaking down. But the reality is it's you just have to kind of shift your way of thinking and saying, look, I'm still meeting with you, right? We're still talking about how to get things done. If we want to have 10 more people on the Zoom call, by all means have it. Like the existence of technology these days should not be an excuse to not function normally, even if the situation has gone bad.
Wow, those are some knowledge bombs. I mean, truly bombs of excellence right there from Derek, and I really appreciate that. And I'm hoping that our audience that's watching this later will find this information really helpful and really encourage them to continue growing out their remote teams. And here's the question: did you ever envision, since starting Full Moon Digital, that being 100% remote will be most organizations' reality, or that it'd ever be real?
Wow. Hopefully I don't get bombarded after I say this, but no. I think most people did frown upon remote work because, the perception from a lot of corporations is that when you let someone go work remotely, they really get very unproductive, and instead of working, they're on the beach, or they are out in the shopping malls, or out drinking beers with your friends at a bar. I mean, that is the myth. That is the unfortunately, that is the perception of remote work, right? And it's not wrong. I mean, let's face it, it's not wrong. Back in the day when I used to work for Yahoo, right? When Yahoo was still a giant in search, they gave us flexible work hours, right? So what happens is, they have a nice campus in Santa Monica, or in up north in NorCal. But what I realized was, I mean, the truth is, most people were spent their time roaming the campus, sitting down, and they're working and having their laptops, out in the sunny deck and all that stuff. But I mean, most people were not as productive as they should be, right? So, and I think the whole boom in web companies and kind of all that created that perception that remote working means that you have no control, or the lack of control over your teams, which means as human nature would kick in, they will take advantage of the situation and go out, right? And many did. And I think that's why there's a huge reluctance in practicing remote workforces for companies. I mean, yes, I get it. Some companies cannot be remote, right? If you're in the defense department, or if you're in some critical government projects, whether you're in Boeing or Lockheed or Northrop Grumman, I mean, it's hard for those people to be remote. You can't really build, defense systems when you're remote. So you need to be there. You need to kind of, do a lot of data crunching and all that stuff in person. But for the rest of commercial civilian companies, no, I did not see this coming. Did I hope that more people would adapt to remote working distributed environment? Absolutely, right? In the end of last year. Obviously, less do I know that, careful what you dream for, what you wish for, right? Now I'd say 100% workforces are remote. So I did not wish upon this. No, nor do I, ever thought this would happen. But this is the reality. It can be temporary. One thing I would say though, Bryan, uh, this is also a perfect opportunity for companies to figure out if remote distributed teams can be really part of their future, right? It's a good time to really figure out, let's say you have a company and you have 1,000 people working for you, right? Now, everyone is remote. This is a good time to analyze what teams can function remotely and what teams cannot, right? Instead of trying to focus on doomsday prep and it's the end of the world, it's the apocalypse, and the four horsemen are riding into Earth and whatnot. I think it's a good time to figure out what teams can function remotely and what can't, right? And after you come out of this, you start to build efficiencies around that structure. So will more companies have remote teams? I certainly hope so, because there will be teams that will function effectively remote coming out of this.
I know it's been a huge adjustment for a lot of organizations and their workforce in general. But I know folks now here at in terms of nonprofit. I want you to speak on that. Why is that? What's been that driving force of focus on nonprofits?
Yeah, I think that we got really kind of fortunate in that, my introduction to the nonprofit world really came when I started working with Vets to Industry, with, Brian Arrington and, yourself and the whole veteran community, which happened sometime, I'd say late last year to early this year, right before all this kind of fell apart. That was my introduction to the nonprofit world. I have obviously thought about it, cursory, and entertain the idea of, hey, maybe there's an opportunity to work and help nonprofit organizations with through digital marketing, right, to fundraising or increasing awareness or driving more people to learn about their purpose, right? And so working with Vets to Industry was kind of the opportunity to be introduced to actually working with a nonprofit, right? That they're our first nonprofit organization that we're working with. They help veterans find jobs and kind of transition out of the military world into the civilian world. As a result of that, we hired two of you guys, right? We hired you, Bryan, and Shannon to join our team from the veteran community. So I think because of that, I saw a huge opportunity, a bigger opportunity to reach out to other nonprofits of all sizes, right, to see if there's any way we can partner together to help them with their digital efforts. Of course, with Google Grants, right, with that being available, and that's been in existence for a while. But I feel like a lot of nonprofits still either one, they don't know that it exists, or if they do, they're not sure how to apply for it. So that's what we want to bring and introduce to nonprofits. And so, especially in this times, you talk about timing is everything and nothing's a coincidence. The nonprofit was not really timed with this environment, in place. It was something that we talked about as a team, and I had kind of brainstormed about a month and a half, 2 months ago. Never thought this would be the situation that we'll be in, but given that, I think now it's a really great time for nonprofits to really share their message. And really kind of drive their awareness that they are there and they can kind of provide that assistance to people who are looking for help in various areas.
If I was a nonprofit and listening to this interview, what would you tell me, or what should I know about, and why would I want to work with Full Moon Digital? What would be the benefit for me to work with your team at Full Moon?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think, first of all, we have two veterans on our team who have been involved with nonprofit organizations for a long time. Bryan, yourself, you have been one of the first, I'd say volunteers and or co-founder of veterans, Vet to Industry. So, we are really fortunate to have, people like yourself and Shannon who have been involved in nonprofits for a long time. We have other people on our team as well who have, worked with nonprofits like, animal shelters and kind of all those different organizations with children. So there was a lot. It came to a moment of realization where I realized there was a lot of untapped expertise within our team, that can help facilitate and help provide that experience with other nonprofits that we can partner with. Definitely, that was I'd say 80% of the reason why. And the other 20% is because we know the digital space, right? We know how to work with Google. We know how to drive awareness for brands. We can port that its portable expertise over to nonprofits, and help them work with that team and help them drive that awareness.
Amazing answer. I know many in the nonprofit space will want to hear more from you and hear more from the Full Moon Digital team. So I'm going to pivot now into the team at Full Moon Digital. During this COVID-19 outbreak and pandemic that we're facing, how have you been able to sustain momentum with your clients, or with the clients you have, and your team members at Full Moon?
Yeah, that's, I think at this point, I want to say that's $1 million question. Maybe with the recession coming in, the $1 million has come reduced to, that's a $100,000 question. With clients, we have to really be careful, and tread lightly, because it's a very sensitive time for a lot of businesses. Like I said earlier on, we lost one client yesterday, right? And the reality was it wasn't due to performance, right? It wasn't due to lack of communication. It wasn't due to anything that, as partners with the brand, we have done poorly, right? In fact, results were actually good until still, right? It was a conscious decision on their part to pull back on spend in terms of cost cutting, spend cutting. I mean, you name it, right? It was, I worked so well with that brand, that partner. We had such a close relationship with them. I even offered them a couple months of free work from our team just to get them through this stage. And then after that, delayed payments, right, till the end of October. Even with that, they said they couldn't do it, right? Which is in itself, kind of makes you wonder. Okay, that, it's free, and you don't have to pay me till October. But in situations like this, I think a lot of brands have a lot of immediate reaction to, okay, we just got to close down and shut down and just spend as little money as we can. Even though they might have the funds to support that. But what I would say is, that reaction could potentially damage more businesses more than the lockdown itself. So, but for the clients that we are still working with, we are taking, we're creating an emergency plan, a continuity plan, which I think is more important than the emergency plan, to kind of say, okay, well, this is what we'll do to get through this. It's pretty standard, right? But more importantly, what do we do after coming out of this, or what do we do when we see signs of recovery? So we have rolled that out to a lot of our clients, and they are all very receptive to it. And partly because we're not seeing a huge dip in performance, right? I think we will see a hit, but the whole point is, if we used to spend $10,000 a month, and we used to generate $80,000 in sales, for example, right? What we're doing now is we're saying, okay, well, you know what? Let's pull that $10,000 spend back to and focus on the essential campaigns that we're running, right? Maybe it will go down to $5,000, but let's still maintain that return at 5, 6, 7x return, right? So we're spending less, but hopefully we're still generating the same proportion of return for our clients. And then, the rest of the money will be stored in a piggy bank, right, to kind of prime it for the recovery.
And I know you mentioned earlier about some of the negatives, about some of the cons of, having this kind of recession hitting. Could you let's kind of go deeper into that? How would you help your clients, and even those in the nonprofit space, overcome those negatives?
Yeah. So, man, that's a tough one, Brian.
I wasn't gonna give you softballs, man.
Man, that's a tough one. At some degree, I think the clients owe it to themselves to come out with their own plan on how to come out of this, how to survive and come out of this recession, right? Unfortunately, cost cutting and vendors will get hurt, right? But as an agency, I think we only have so many things we can do as an agency, right? And we're going to do every single one of them. That includes things like temporary cost reduction in our fees, right? Nobody wants to do that. In fact, I actually am seeing people who are pitching their services more now on Facebook and LinkedIn, saying that the time is right, but I don't see anyone talking about, but we're going to help you with the cost cutting and all that stuff. Cost cutting, delayed payments, I think even to a certain extent, even a temporary free service for agencies that can do it, right? Because this is a perfect time, right? This is the perfect kind of perfect storm for both clients and agencies, right? To build loyalty and to strengthen their relationship with each other. All right. So, any agency who is out there, who is not doing anything, and I'm not saying none of them are, I'm sure a lot of them are, right? But those who are, they may not have the financial means to actually do what they want to do, right? So as a result of that, they cannot afford to cut cost. And if cutting costs means laying people off, that might be a tough decision to do as well. But kind of coming back to Full Moon, yes, we are considering a reduction in fees, temporary fees, all the way through potentially end of Q2 even, right? Or for some, we might even consider Q3 depending on the situation. And yes, I'm putting this out there. It might come back and kind of bite me in the butt, but it's something that I feel very strongly about, right? So there's really no point in hiding it, and giving clients a delayed payment, option, right? And will that hurt the agency? Maybe, maybe not. I don't know, but that's not my focus right now, right? My focus right now is to really kind of figure out how we can, as an agency, as a team, do whatever we can to reduce the burden and the stress of our clients and even new clients that we're going to bring on board during this time. Go ahead.
No, fantastic answers, Derek, and that was great. I think that will, that should encourage a lot of potential clients or even nonprofits to want to work with us, because you, being the person that you are, you're willing to step out there and say, this is what I'm going to do to help you survive. Even if it might hurt me a little bit, I want to see your business continue to grow, even in these uncertain times. So that says a lot about who you are as a business owner. And hopefully this will encourage other business owners to kind of take a look at themselves and say, what can I possibly do to help my clients that I'm working with, or my employees that are working for me? And how can I make this a little bit easier transition, because it is such an unstable time. A question I do have for you is, when you're talking about bringing on new members to the team, or even when you're talking about maybe new clients, what do you look for when you're interviewing them? Especially like if you're talking about employees, what do you look for when you're trying to bring them onto the digital team? And what would you consider a must-have?
Well, after a couple of years of interviewing people remotely and haven't met them in person, haven't spent, nearly enough time with them, I start to realize that it's really not, sometimes it's not about the skills or the tools you know how to use, right? Because I could train you on how to use, Google Analytics, or I can send you videos on how to, find your way around, Microsoft Excel document and create pivot tables and all that stuff. Those are skill sets, right? And that can be trained over time. I'm not worried about that. As I kind of, find people to join our team. Man, you weren't kidding about finishing that bottle, were you?
I will finish a bottle of Coke in no time.
So I think what I look for these days in hiring people is really hiring them for who they are, what they believe in, what they stand for, and overall, I'm still not good at this, and I obviously, as I do more of this, I'll get better at it. Right? Is to figure out if that person is really who they say they are over the phone. right? And it's really hard to judge that. It's really hard to decipher that because, I mean, let's face it, right? Anyone can tell a good story over the phone, right? So, a couple things that I've started to do is ask really tough and direct questions. And you can, at least for me, I can get a sense of, okay, is this person, making this up, or are they giving me answers that I need to hear to get to the next stage, right? And my tough questions are, not the cliche ones like, oh, why do you think I should hire you? I think that's dumb, to be honest. Why should I hire you? Because I need a job, I need money, I need to pay my bills. But I think it's questions. I think last week I had several conversations. I really asked someone like, okay, you know what, tell me focus on what your strengths are, and can you tell me, 2 or 3 things that you feel you are strong at, and it doesn't really have to pertain to the position that you're applying for. And I'm not sure if it's human nature that kicks in during those type of questions, but many default to saying what they're not good at. Right. So instead of saying, hey, I'm good at this, I'm good at that, what they'll end up saying is, you know what, I like to do this, but I don't think I'm strong. I'm like, okay, well, that's not the question, right? So, usually those conversations lead me to believe within a short period of time that you have no idea what you're strong at and what you really excel in, right? The lack of confidence in answering that question, and there's a very gray line between being confident about what you're good at and what you're strong at, and being cocky about it, right? But then there's also that other level of being confident to tell me what you're good at versus not even knowing what you're good at. So, and that's different to me. That's different than what you're passionate about, right? Having passion to do something doesn't mean you're good at it. You just enjoy doing it, right? I have a passion to go fishing. Does not mean I could go catch an 80-pound tuna. So, that's something that I kind of, it's a very fine line to walk, Bryan, and I'm still learning. Obviously, our team is small, so I've not had the luxury of, practicing this on hundreds of people. But so I do take each of my interview calls very seriously in terms of what I ask, and I try to, A/B test. Right, that's the marketer in me coming out. I try to A/B test even my questions, even if I tweak 1 or 2 words within the question and the same question. I try to phrase it where, I kind of, fish again for the answers that I'm looking for.
That really should give a lot of insight as to who you are as a leader, but also gives that person that might be watching that's seeing your postings about your openings that you have right now inside Full Moon, what kind of person they're going to be talking to when they're saying, hey, I want to work for you. That should give us confidence. Now, I have one question for you. This last one. If someone, whether it be a potential client or nonprofit, wanted to reach out to you, how do they contact Full Moon Digital? How would they begin that conversation?
No, that's it. That's for me, that is probably one of the easiest questions I've had all day with you, Bryan, for this entire phone call. Reach out to us, fullmoondigital.com, or, even better, you can hit me up, Derek, DEREK, at fullmoondigital.com. And let's have a conversation about how our team can help you, whether it's through this time or, beyond this time of kind of chaotic situations. More than happy to have a chat at least. I think out of 500 people I talk to on LinkedIn, maybe 3 become clients, right? But I've added more friends than I've ever had in terms of virtually. All right. So, reach out whether we do business or not. I think, connecting is more important to me than, having 50 clients a month.
Wow. In this, ladies and gentlemen, for those this is why I have become such a champion for Derek and Full Moon Digital. So I want to thank you so much for your time today, Derek. It's so much great information was shared, and I'm excited about our work here at Full Moon. I really am. This is all I have for you today. This is all I have for us today. I appreciate everything you've done so far with Full Moon, and I look forward to the future ahead, both on the nonprofit side and the client side, because if you're a potential business owner, or if you're a business owner that doesn't really have a digital strategy, I encourage you guys to reach out to Derek. in his contact information below. We can share that information. We want you guys to have that conversation with us because we can figure out a strategy that will make you successful even in these trying times. So, Derek, I'm going to hand it to you for sign off, and we'll go from there.
All right. That was good. Thanks for the time, Bryan.
Well, have a good day. Thank you so much for talking.
All right. See ya.